Come on, oh, baby, don't you wanna go?
Hi, I'm Nick Rosaci, author of Soul Fingers, A Life of Music of legendary bassist Donald "Duck" Dunn, and you are watching ForBassPlayersOnly.com.
To that same old place, sweet home, Chicago.
Hi everyone, John Liebman here. You're watching ForBassPlayersOnly.com. Coming to you today on location from Hollywood, sunny Hollywood, California. It is a gorgeous day. With our special guest today, Nick Rosaci. What's up, Nick?
How you doing?
I'm doing great, and I'm very honored to meet you and to be sitting down with you because you've done something that has created quite a buzz and quite a stir in the bass community and in the music community. You authored the new Duck Dunn book, Soul Fingers, which is just came out recently, selling like wildfire. We've sold quite a few of them on For Bass Players Only. So I wanted to sit down with you, find out who is the man behind the duck, behind Duck Dunn, and all the study and the research and all the things that you've done. But let's talk a little bit about you first of all. You are from Central Florida. You're a bass player. You play electric. You play upright. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you became a bass player.
Well, I was born and raised in Brevard County, Melbourne, Florida, and in that county, the music education there has always been great. And a lot of my friends, I ran into them in college. There's still a lot of my high school buddies are still professional musicians around the country. I went through the band and orchestra program there, so I was playing euphonium in the band and cello in the orchestra. And I dabbled a little on bass. I bought a little cruise bass guitar when I was 15 and just played a little bit of like the alternative rock stuff, you know. But when I got into college, I got a healthy scholarship on euphonium, and I started gravitating toward the bass at college. And the bass professor noticed that, and she gave me the ability to check out a bass from Instrument Storage whenever I wanted to learn how to play upright. And then eventually I changed over to jazz bass studies, and when I transferred to the next college, and the professor there wouldn't let me not learn electric bass while I was studying with him. He said, if you want a passing grade, you're going to have to learn both upright and electric. So
that's really refreshing to hear, because in the old days, all the snootery and snobbery, they wouldn't even recognize the electric bass. What about going from the cello, which is tuned in fifths, to the bass, which is tuned in fourths? Did that throw you for a curve, or did you just change mindsets and have it click?
You know, I don't think it did, because I went through the strings classes in fourth grade where you had to hear the teacher teach the bass kids how to play their bass versus the cello and all that. When I switched over, it wasn't really hard. It's actually more difficult for me having to go back to cello now. When I pick up a cello, I start fingering it like a bass, or the spacing's a lot wider on a bass, of course. So intonation makes it a little difficult. But other than that, it's not really that hard. And, of course, I'm also a brass player, so I've never really had an issue changing gears, so.
Good.
Yeah.
Now, you've done an awful lot of transcriptions, which is kind of largely what you're known for, right? I mean, tell us about that part of your musical career.
Well, in college, being a jazz major, they make you just transcribe.
I've been there.
Homework is 4 bars a day or 8 bars a day, however much you transcribe, just do more the next day. And when I was out of college, I just wanted to see if I could transcribe an entire orchestral piece, and I did, and it sounded almost identical, and that was through Finale. It sounded identical to the recording.
Well, excuse me. I mean, orchestral pieces could be, could be Mozart, or it could be Stravinsky,
I meant like film scoring or video game scoring, stuff like that. Things that don't have a score that I can't just go and pay money to get. And all my teachers and mentors always told me that's really not worth it. It's not a skill that's worth honing, because you can just buy the music, and it's not always the case. And I would still just transcribe bass lines on my own, and that's just how I got around to this, transcribing a lot of Duck.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the Duck Dunn book.
Right.
What were you thinking when you set out to do it, and what was, I mentioned to you before with the interview that I imagine it must have been largely a labor of love, but how did the idea come to you, and just tell us about the book. Soul Fingers.
That was it was never. I never thought it would go this far. Of course, that makes it the labor of love. But like I said, I've always had an issue playing in the pocket and sitting in the pocket. You play grooves, then you play a fill, and the guitarist or the band leader looks at you and glares at you and lectures you after the gig, and you don't get hired back. And one guy took me off the side and said, have you ever really checked out Duck Dunn? And I knew who he was, and every bass player will say, I know who Duck is, but if you say play a Duck Dunn line right now, a lot of them can't do it. And I learned that pretty quickly too. But what I did is I was just watching Blues Brothers one day, and the one bass line I really wanted to learn was Sweet Home Chicago, because it's a really good connection between the jazz and blues differences right there. He's got a great walk-in bass line that I think is just as great as anything Paul Chambers or Ray Brown has put out. So I wanted, but I didn't really want to transcribe. Transcription is my last resort. It's when I just want to go and find it and just play it.
I always thought transcription was your passion.
It's more of I just want to learn what he's doing, and no one else has done it yet, so I'm going to do it.
So you did all the transcriptions for the Duck Dunn book?
Yeah. And when I found there was, I saw there was that other book, the Tim Tyndall book out, and it didn't have Sweet Home Chicago in it, and being used, it was being sold for exorbitant prices on eBay and Amazon. I think when my book was released, someone was trying to sell a copy for $20,000. But yeah.
How did that turn out?
Once my book was released, it came down to $1,000, and last I checked, I think it's $185 or so. But yeah, Sweet Home Chicago wasn't in it. A lot of people don't credit Duck, or they don't look at that bass line. I mean, Duck's got a lot of great bass lines, but I really thought that was an exception to the norm on him, because his bass lines are very structured, while this one was all improvised, and I really liked that about it. And so when I started transcribing it and realized how long that tune was, I was like, well, I could actually put this out there for a lot of people, and I could probably get a lot more of his bass lines. And there's no official book, and I wasn't about to spend, I think at the time I could find a copy of the book for $250. I wasn't about to spend $250 on that other book, way out of print. So I called up Hal Leonard Publishing through a friend who gave me the phone number, and left a voicemail. Didn't think they were going to call back, and 5 to 10 minutes later, the vice president of publishing,
Jeff Schradel, my man,
called me up, and he just goes, hell yes, when can we have it done? And I didn't even think it was going to be nibbled at. I was still maybe 3 courses into Sweet Home Chicago, and I'm just like, oh crap, what did I just get myself into?
I've been there.
And yeah, from there he said, send us a list of tunes, and I'm like, well, I have to have that one, I have to have that one, I have to have that one. And everyone knows everything that Duck did in Stax Records, so let's go outside of Stax and see what else he did. And it was well over 60 tunes, and he goes, can you whittle it down a little bit? And I said, I can't whittle it down a lot though. So it came out, it was originally going to be 58, and one song, I think it was Blue Boy, John Fogerty, I think that was the one we couldn't get the rights to. There was one song where we just couldn't get the rights to it, and so we had to pull that one. And there was another one. What I found in my research, it was referred to as one of Duck's bass lines. I Like It by The Emotions, or Carla Thomas did a version as well. That was supposed to be the inspiration for Jocko's Come On Come Over. And it's an awesome bass line. If you check it out, it's kind of Duck structure, but it's a lot of technique. So I wasn't sure it was him or not. So that was something I asked everyone I interviewed. And, Deanie Parker, Steve Cropper, Jeff Dunn, all these people, and no one knew. And then finally I got James Alexander on the horn, and he goes, yeah, that was me. I'm like, oh. But
I would imagine that you learned a lot about Duck Dunn, the person, and I think most of us know Stax, Booker T and the MGs, Blues Brothers, Otis Redding, that whole thing. But what do most of us not know about Duck Dunn that you learned that you can share with us?
He's a smartass, or he was. He was a jokester. He he made a lot of really bad jokes, and when he delivered the punchline, he was laughing so hard he couldn't finish the sentence. So that's what everyone
Sounds like
remembers
me.
about him. Yeah, that's what everyone remembers about him.
The guys are nodding. Yeah, get out of here.
And I was trying to do something where I was interviewing people where I would ask them what their favorite joke of his was, and they all say, well, there's so many bad ones, I don't have one. But I think it was Anton Fig who said, his favorite thing that he remembers was Duck used to say that when they were on tour with the Blues Brothers, he would say, if they ever have a contest and someone wins, first prize should be spending a week with the Blues Brothers. Second prize should be spending 2 weeks with the Blues Brothers. He just said it was one of those grueling things, and that was one of the ways he kind of. But that was him. He was a from what I can gather, he was a shirt off his own back type of guy. Would do anything for anyone. He actually did his best to help Belushi through his drug habits, and Clapton. He helped Clapton through his habit. So he was that kind of a guy, just wanted to help everybody. And
I bet Steve Cropper probably had some good insights because they worked so closely together for so long.
Steve, actually, I just went and read my foreword for the first time since the book was published 2 days ago, and I just remember that Steve told me, what you'll find when you talk to people about Duck is it's more about Duck the person than it is Duck the bass player. Yeah. He was such a great person that it didn't really matter how great a bass player he was because he was always a better person than he was a bass player. So I thought that was really cool. He was just a real sweet guy, real humble. He didn't think he deserved the gig on Blues Brothers. He was about to turn it down because he was like, look at all these great players, I can't hang with them. Duck Dunn was saying this. And, just very modest, very humble, very sweet guy. That's what I've gathered about him.
Just if you can rattle off a few of the other names of people that you've interviewed that whose information is included in the book, I think that'd be of interest as well.
Let's see.
Steve Cropper, you mentioned.
Steve Cropper, Anton Fig, Steve Potts, Bobby Manuel, who was the guitar player who replaced Steve Cropper in Stax when Steve left. Jim Spake, who's a well-known reed player in the Memphis area. Who else?
Well, that's a good list. I mean,
Brian Johnson was one as well. So Brian Johnson actually has a little bit of a letter in the back of the book about how he misses Duck and all that stuff. So that's really great.
An absolute treasure trove of information. And
Absolutely.
On behalf of all of us, we thank you for writing it. The book is called Soul Fingers, The Life and Music of Legendary Bass Player Donald Duck Dunn. Did I get that
right.
exactly right?
I can't remember if it's Music and Life or Life and Music, but I'm sure if you Google it, either way it'll come up. So.
Okay. Well, my goodness, Nick, let's talk about this bass. This has some historical significance. Tell us about what you're holding there.
I've been telling all my friends that this is kind of the holy grail of basses here. It's up there with, Jocko's Bass of Doom and the Funk Machine by James Jamerson. But this is Duck Dunn's 1958. He's got his stickers on it, got the labellas on it, and pretty sure this is 20 or 30 year set of strings here. He never changed them until a string broke and they changed the whole set. One cool thing about this bass that no one's ever really pointed out and people have been wondering about when they see pictures is this guy right here. This is a little string extender. I think it's an ingenious idea. It's a little thing here to keep the winding of the back end of the ball end off the bridge so that it's included or it's not a part of the string length to help with the resonance of the string. So when I heard that, the first thing I went is gone into a hardware store and grabbed a couple of nuts and ran them through the string to keep the same thing happening. But yeah, I don't know if it works or not, but hell, it doesn't hurt to try, right? And I put one on my A string because the wrapping on the A string does go over the bridge on my bass as well. But yeah, he's interesting things, routing out the wood here and a little bit of the pick guard here. But yeah, this is when I was asked to go pick it up, I'm like, are you guys sure that you want me to hold on to this thing for a couple of weeks? But yeah, so
What if you forget to give it back?
then I guess a few grand will just end up to fall into my wallet.
Wow, Duck Dunn's bass, my goodness.
It's always great, just sitting here and first thing I did was when I got here this morning is pulled it out and just started playing it in the office where no one was, noticing it like Phil did over there. But but yeah, it's got a lot of juju in it, and it's always great to keep trying to pull it out of there. So.
Well, congratulations on this. It's an absolute treasure trove of information. The book is called Soul Fingers, The Life and Music of Legendary Bass Player Donald "Duck" Dunn. I think that's pretty exactly what the title is.
It's about, close enough.
Okay.
I couldn't do it any better. So.
Just remember Soul Fingers. You can
I
get
wrote
that.
things down because I forget them all the time. That's why I got a book, so I don't forget anything. So.
And remember, Nick Rosaci, congratulations on this incredible feat. And on behalf of all of us, thank you very much.
Thank you.
On location in Hollywood, California, with Nick Rosaci, author of Soul Fingers, I'm John Liebman. You're watching ForBassPlayersOnly.com.